Welcome to the LDS Mental Health Podcast. This is a podcast for faithful women who want healing in their relationships, guidance from God, and internal peace. Each week, you'll hear mental health concepts taught through a spiritual lens from me, a licensed clinical mental health counselor, to help you start thinking in a higher and holier way. Welcome. On this episode, we will be talking about grieving through the Savior with guest Amber Jackson.
Okay. All right. I'm so excited to welcome Amber Jackson to the podcast this week. I have just loved following Amber and just brings so much joy when I get to see her on the internet, but also she has an amazing story. And I just wanted to introduce you guys to her. So Amber, you have a Instagram account called Enjoying Holland. And I would love for you just to introduce yourself and maybe talk a little bit about where that name came from for you.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I'm so excited to be here. This is the stuff I'm so passionate about. So my Instagram account, I always get the question, Enjoying Holland. Why? People think that's my last name. People think I live there. And it sounds kind of confusing, but when it all ties in together, people are like, I love it so much. So my oldest child, we found out when he was born that he has Down syndrome. So it was a little bit of a shock. It came a little bit early, and I really fell into like a deep, dark postpartum depression. And I think it was, I do think a lot of it was just hormones, having postpartum. And then I think a lot of it was me just trying to process the fact that I had a special needs child now, and it wasn't something I was planning on. So I read this story right around that time. And it's called Welcome to Holland. And it's basically this little short story that talks about having a child with special needs in your entire life. You plan this trip to Italy. You plan, you prepare, you're so excited. The time has come. You get on the plane, you land, and they say, Welcome to Holland. And you're like, hold on, wait a second. Holland is not where I'm supposed to be. It's not what I planned for. It's not even close to what I want. And they say, but Holland is where you are, and this is where you have to stay. And other people from Italy can come and visit you and tell you how great it is, but this is where you are. And at first you're mad and you're sad and you're angry and you feel all of the feelings. And then you realize over time that Holland is beautiful. It has windmills, it has tulips, it has culture and art and cathedrals, and it's just gorgeous itself. So even though it wasn't what you wanted, you realize this place is still beautiful. So that for me, like really helped kind of pull me out of my postpartum when I was just like, I have this beautiful child who just wants to be loved. So then years go by, I have a second child, and my kids are now 4 and 4 months old. And I separate from my husband. We end up getting divorced, which was not something I wanted, not something I even saw coming. Yeah. So I, again, was really like, all right, I'm back in this Holland, this metaphorical Holland, where this is not what I want, not what I planned for, but I'm going to make this life with my 2 boys, the 3 of us, a good life. Like, we are going to enjoy this little Holland that we're in. And then I got remarried to a wonderful, wonderful man. We have 2 kids together. And when we were married just over 3 years, our youngest was a month old. My husband was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer called glioblastoma. And I was like, what the heck? Once again, my plane has landed in this Holland where I'm like, I can't escape it. I can't get out of it. Yeah. But after 16 months of fighting, he passed away June of 2022. And so I have just decided to live my life, like enjoying every bit of Holland that I'm in, that I can. And I think it applies to more than just special needs or death or divorce. It applies to all of us in life. Like, we are all going to be in Holland at some point or another. And so my Instagram account is truly just trying to find like the daily joy, even when life is not going our way. Just how can we find joy in our life?
Yes. I love that. I love that. And you definitely exemplify that every day on your on your account. I just love it.
Thank you.
And I think one of the reasons, well, first of all, this podcast is really for Latter-day Saint women. It's for them to understand mental health through the spirituality, and that they can be combined together. And I love that you talk about the Savior being your way of grieving. He is your kind of process of grieving. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that and kind of your experience with that. Maybe you can talk a little bit about, how you came to doing that and knowing that and what that's like for you.
Yeah. So I grew up a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I feel like I always had a strong testimony as a teenager, as strong as you can. And then when I became an adult and I started having adult problems, that's when it kind of hit of like, all right, how strong is my testimony? Like, am I going to, how often am I going to turn to the Lord? I'm now having, like I said, adult problems versus like teenage problems.
Right.
And so I know after my divorce was a big turning point for me, where it was really like, I can go one of both ways. I can completely be angry, or I can like really turn to the Lord. And that was a time that I really turned to the Lord. And I think my biggest time in life has been in the last, I'd say 2.5 years since my husband was diagnosed. He was diagnosed February of 2021. And it's just been something where I'm like, okay, I've been told to pray, like when you're having a hard time. So I turn to the Lord, and instead of being like, I really wish I don't have to go through this, or please just bless that I can find peace, like just such a simple prayer.
Yeah.
There is something to be said in coming to the Lord and feeling completely broken and saying to him, like, I am so broken right now. I don't know where to go from here. Like I'm doing all of the primary answers and this is still happening. And so, like I said, there's something to be said. There's power and there's beauty in coming to the Lord in absolute brokenness and just saying, I don't know what's happening right now, and I need you to help me fix this. And it doesn't mean that he will come in and cure your husband's cancer or do anything like that, but I need you to help fix me that I can get through this.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yes. I think so many times I see women looking at prayer as a way to change their circumstances rather than prayer to change you, like you to become the person that God wants you to become. And that means coming to God in all the things, right? Like we don't have to come to God in just the positive, right? Or only approaching God with the gratitude, but approaching God with all emotions and letting him know that we are feeling these emotions and there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely. I think it's often this misthought that we're not allowed to come to the Lord in anger, or this is Amber's personal opinion, that we're not allowed to like come to him and let him know we're angry, that like to have faith means to always be like, I believe you, I trust you, which yes, is a part of it. But I think some of my times when I've had the most sacred experiences with the Lord is when I have come to him and been like, I am so angry right now. And I can't tell if it's at you or if it's at the situation, but like, I am so upset about this. And I need you to know that, having anger and emotions and disappointment is such a mortal feeling that the Lord is okay with. I feel like he can handle it when we feel that way. For him to give us mortality and then ask us not to feel that way is so against his plan and like what he has for us. It's more of like, what are you going to do when you are angry and sad and disappointed? That's when he wants us to come to him. So I have had plenty of conversations when I'm like, we need to chat because I'm not happy about what's happening right now. And I don't, and what I need from the Lord in those moments is, I mean, I would really like him to come in and fix my situation, but that never happens. My husband did not magically get cured of cancer. But I'm like, I need to know that I'm going to be okay, that like, this is going to be okay, no matter how it turns out.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense at all.
100%. Yes. And I think those are the things that we forget. So that, the but if not prayer, right? Like this is what I want. I do want him to be cured of cancer, and I'm going to keep asking for that. I'm not going to stop asking for that. But if not, I need this, right? And I need these things to happen for me. And that's okay to ask for those things.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes. I was thinking of too, as you were talking about like emotions and things like that. I think sometimes just as a mental health therapist, a lot of times people feel like you have to turn a positive or a negative emotion into a positive emotion, and that's healing. And that's not actually healing. That's just avoiding or damming up, right? And creating, building it up in your body. And that's not healthy for you. And that really what we want to do is pass through emotions, right? That the Savior was the perfect example of that. When he atoned for every feeling we ever had, he passed through all of those feelings. He experienced them. He allowed himself to feel those feelings. How do you find yourself feeling those feelings? I notice sometimes, and I love how you do this. You're like, I'm off. I was off Instagram for a little bit. I was feeling some feelings. That's not what I want to show up and, and do. but what are you doing behind the scenes? Do you feel like, what do you have for people to know? Like, how do you feel those feelings yoked with the Savior and have him help you pass through those?
Oh gosh, that's such a beautiful question. And I love that you said going through, because I go to therapy once a week and we often refer to it. I've said to her, like, I feel like I am not one that can like pull up my coat in the cold and like grit my teeth and just try to get through it. I have to like swim in the mud. I need like the dirt and the leaves and the twigs to get like all up in my crevices and my nooks and crannies. Like I need to like go completely through it. I need to go through that mud, head under and everything, because then I feel like when I get out and I like the water, like it washes it all off of me. I'm like, I did that. So behind the scenes, I'm trying to think of like, what is it and how is it that I do this? I feel like I'm probably a little more subdued. So people, my family and friends are usually like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm just, feeling the feelings and everything like that. It's usually like dinner's not always made, which honestly, my kids had ice cream for dinner last night. So I can't even say that it's all the time anyway. I think I clear my expectations for the day. I have things that absolutely need to get done, like my children need to get to and from school. And I do need to feed my children, even though it may not be the full meal. I do need to do this. I do need to do that. There are things that need to get done, but the things that absolutely do not need to get done, I usually just clear my day. And a lot of the time that means like I'm laying on the couch snuggling with my kids and we watch Frozen for like the 18th time that day. Or I fall asleep in one of their beds while they play on the floor. It's honestly, it feels very like lethargic at times. But that's what my body personally needs. I'm a single mom of 4 kids, so it's go, go, go. That may mean for me, like I go on a walk, but without my phone, without social media, without any intention to like record it and show people what I'm doing. It's a gratitude walk. It's a meditative walk. It's just a walk with my kids. I just kind of unplug from what I feel like is expected of me, what people, and I mean like socially expected of me. Does that make sense? And I just feel like it's a constant, I feel like I pray more to the Lord. I say my prayers on my knees at night, but I pray more to the Lord throughout the day, just in a constant conversation in my mind. So I feel like during those days when I'm a little unplugged, it's just more of that constant conversation with the Lord of like, I am hurting today. I really, really hurt today. And I know that this is a mortal feeling, but like, I just need to feel a little lifted.
Relief or hope or something in that moment. Yes. I love that. I would really categorize that as like a stillness, right? Like we're taking away the stimulation of what we normally have to create that stillness, because stillness is such a powerful tool. I don't think people realize how much that can be healing for our minds, our bodies, our spirits, and reconnecting with the physical presence of what's just right in front of us, right? And being still and receiving what God wants us to receive in that moment.
Okay, you just said it way better than what I did, which makes sense since you're the professional here. But I do, because I had said like it sounds lethargic, but it's not, like, okay, my emails don't go answered right away and all of that. But I feel like sometimes my world is spinning. Like I have so much to do all the time. And I'm like, I can feel it. I'm getting wrapped up in my own like twirling, that I need the stillness. I need to have that connection with the Lord a little bit more clear so that I can receive whatever he's wanting to give me and just be available.
Yes. I often use the analogy of like a radio, like that God is always sending the information to the radio, right? We may not be receiving it if we're not tuned into the right station. We can tune into that station by creating stillness, right? That sometimes we're not tuned into that station because we're tuned into 17 other stations. And it is just so much. And I love that you said, like, I just clear my schedule. I turn all those other stations off, and those things that help me tune into that one station, my kids, a walk, movement, whatever that might be that I feel called to, that tunes me in to receive his power in that moment. And he knows what you need in that moment, because he already atoned for what you felt. So he knows what to provide you in that moment.
Absolutely. I love how you just said all of that.
Yes. Oh, I just love that you do it too. That I think that grief sometimes I see a lot of times when people are coming in that they feel like they're doing it wrong. Like people will come into my office and then they feel like I must be doing something wrong because I'm still feeling, right? Or I'm still experiencing whatever it might be, right? How do you allow yourself to be like on the journey of it, right? And be able to experience all the emotions of it and feel like this is okay. This is okay to do. Does that make sense?
It does. And that's such a good question. I feel like that's a question I get a lot, like some variation of that. And I definitely was one of those people in the beginning that I was like, am I doing it right? Am I like where I should be at this point, at the 2-month mark, at the 6-month mark, at the year mark? And I know for me, I had to throw like whatever pretend guidebook I had in my mind as to what grief looks like I had to throw it out the window because one, it looks so different for everyone.
Yeah.
And two, I realized I have unfortunately just been on a roller coaster that I don't think I'll ever get off. So I just got asked yesterday, like, do you ever feel like you'll be able to get off the roller coaster? And I said, I don't think so. But I can tell you that in the very beginning, I felt like it was constantly twists and turns and upside down and all over the place. And now I feel like there's more slower moments where I'm just riding the ride. I'm having a good time. And then it'll occasionally give me a little jolt, a little dip, a little twist, and I'm on it. And so I think for me, you just have to figure out like what grief looks like for you. And I have realized I personally grieve very much through connection. I still try to connect to my husband in so many ways, and that helps me grieve. For example, I was in the garage months ago. I randomly decided to do like DIY work, which I'm not like a DIY person, but something in me was like, no, you can do this. Yeah. So my sister brought over her chop saw and she's showing me all this stuff. And then I'm in there by myself and I'm like, this is awesome. Like I'm killing it. And I saw my husband's tool belt hanging in the garage. Okay, so one of two things could happen. I could immediately spiral and be like, if he were here, he'd be doing this. We'd be doing this together, all of this stuff, which is a very real possibility that could still happen. I saw it and I thought he would think I look so hot in this tool belt. So I put it on his tool belt and I all day was like, he is totally checking me out from heaven. Awesome. And I just felt so connected to him wearing his tool belt. And it sounds so silly. It sounds so silly, but it's moments like that where I was just so sad that he wasn't there to do this project with me, but I found a way to connect to him and like grieve that whole feeling of like, he's not here, but I'm doing it and I'm going to wear his tool belt while I do it. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely, yes. And both can be true, right? Like sometimes you have those moments where it spirals you and that's fine too, right?
And I do.
Like
absolutely, I do. Yeah.
And both are fine. I think both are healing, right? Like I think I like that should that you talked about where people feel like, well, it should look this way if I'm moving through the journey, right? Like or if it looks this way, it means I'm stuck in there. I'm like not moving forward, but the journey you're moving forward no matter what. You're never really stuck. You're just moving forward in what you are supposed to move forward in.
Absolutely. And there are going to be times that something, whether it is the death of someone you know, or just something else that you're grieving, like there is going to be something that might bring it up. And again, these are mortal feelings that we have, and they are perfectly okay. So I think for me, I often have to just give myself space to be like, okay, I am feeling this feeling today, and I don't like that I'm feeling it, or I don't want to feel it right now. Like it's really not convenient for me to feel this right now.
Yes.
But I have to give myself space to be like, I'm feeling it. What do I need right now? Do I need, 5 minutes locked in my closet? Do I need to clear my whole schedule? Do I need to go pick up cheesecake and eat that in my car alone? What do I need? And I let myself have it. I never let myself think like, you're not doing it right. Why are you still crying? Why are you still feeling this way? I just think, all right, what does my heart, my body, my spirit need? And then I move forward.
I love that because God will guide you, right? God will guide you in that process of like, this is what's necessary today, or no, this is what's necessary. And he'll provide that strength to do what he knows that you need to do in that moment, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And do that. That made me think of something. We have this visual that we use in some of our grief groups that because sometimes you hear about like the 5 stages of grief and things like that. But I love this one where we talked about like grief is really about like dealing with the day-to-day tasks that now are on your plate, maybe because of grief or just in general you have to take care of. And then there's also the dealing with the grief, right? There's another aspect of that. And there's a third part of grief is bouncing back and forth between those two things, right? Which I feel like is kind of what you're describing is like, I choose day to day, like, or not necessarily choose, but I ask what I am supposed to be doing today. Is this, I need to set grief aside today and I need to get these tasks done. I need to focus on these things. I need to do this in my life. Or is today the day that I'm feeling grief and that's the area that I'm in? Or is today kind of the allowing myself to recover from being in one of those areas and getting back in the other? Does that kind of resonate with what you're talking about?
Absolutely. I feel like that's a constant, I feel like that's a daily thing. And even like throughout the day, I feel like I'm still, I'm trying to figure that out. Like, where am I today? Where do I fit in that line? Like you said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other thing I thought about as you were talking, just because social media is kind of a weird thing. Like, when you're present on social media, you'll get this. And I think I kind of like probably a smidgen of what you probably get, but like, do people show up and tell you how you need to be grieving, and how do you handle that? Because I think people probably have that in their day-to-day life, even if they're not on Instagram, right? But dealing with how other people think you should be grieving and presenting that to you as if you're doing it right or wrong.
Oh yeah. I for the most part get supportive, but I do get the people that tell me I'm doing it wrong. I need to do this instead. Every Friday I post a video of my husband. My Friday dose of Tim is what I call it. And I feel like people really enjoy it, or at least I tell myself people do.
They do. They do. Keep doing it.
It's something that started a couple weeks after he died. I just posted a random video on a Friday, and then it just kind of took off from there. And I have a lot of people that are like, I feel like I am getting to know your husband, even though I didn't know him. And it's just beautiful to see me like keep his memory alive. But I do get people that are like, he died. It's over. Get over it. Like, you need to move on. And I'm like, I need you to know he will always be a part of my life. So this Friday dose of Tim is a way that I feel connected to him and I keep him alive. And he was just such a gem of a person that I feel like it just shows other people, who he was. And by also doing that, I'm hoping to show how a grieving process can look like. Like, I can still remember my husband 16 months later and bring him up and still feel like I'm doing okay. And also, it's shown a lot of people how to, what's the word I'm looking for? To like just live life and to love and to take the video, get in the frame, take the video, because I'm so glad that 16 months later, I still have videos every Friday to post of him. But I get people all the time that are like, you shouldn't be crying at this point, or you shouldn't be teaching your kids this or something like that. And I often think I'm just grateful for them that they have probably never felt grief on the level that I have. I'm like, I don't feel like you fully get it unless you've gone through it.
That's such an amazing perspective to protect yourself, right? Because we can get really, for me, like, that's one of my like fears is people putting myself out there is like, people will start judging me and telling me this, and being able to protect myself from that judgment. I feel like in therapy, I'd never share anything about myself, right? So it's like I'm always protected and not vulnerable in that state. And so that's such a great way to have that perspective and also protect yourself, right? It's just, they have empathy. Empathy is a great tool in that way, right? It's just like, they really don't understand because they haven't walked in my shoes, and I can have grace for them in this moment.
Yeah.
All right, I had to interrupt this episode for a quick reminder. The holidays are coming. They are fast approaching, and there are a few gifts that you're usually scrambling to think of ideas for last minute, and that's your friends, neighbors, or ministering sisters. Not this year, though. I have you covered. The Meaningful Prayer Journals are a powerful yet inexpensive gift that help your gift receiver build a stronger relationship with God through prayer so they can feel Christ's enabling power, see the hand of God in their life, and prioritize their day through the Spirit. And this is also a fabulous gift for Relief Society presidencies to give out. When you purchase in bulk for your Relief Society sisters, I offer a 25% discount off the journals. And this year, I'm even adding a free virtual fireside called 5 Ways to Hear Him More in Your Life. And you can schedule that fireside anytime in the next 6 months. So click the link in my show notes and order yours today. All right, back to the episode.
Truly, because like I said, there is no proper way to grieve. And I'm like, I just don't think that they understand it fully. And that's fine. And that's fine.
Yes, absolutely. Which kind of, I love your perspective. I want to jump into your perspective of joy. I love that you've created this daily joy guide, helping people understand and connect with joy. So tell me, I think there's a big misconception about what joy really is. Can we have a little bit of a conversation? Because I think I'm often having this discussion in sessions with people because they mistake joy for happiness.
Yes.
And it's really not happiness. So talk a little bit about what joy is, what brought you to wanting to spread that message and what it means to you.
So beautiful. This is a topic I'm so passionate about. I think a common misconception is that in order to have joy, you don't have any sadness, you don't have any sorrow, or that if you've had that, like we've talked about, that you're like over it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's true. I think that would be absolutely impossible for anybody to feel joy if that were the case.
Yeah.
Completely, just not even something any of us could attain. So I think I want to just help people understand that they can still feel that joy even when they are going through hard times. Like in the middle of it, they can still feel a little spark of joy in their life somewhere.
Yeah.
For me, it often starts with Christ. He is like the source of that for me. And he it's just the source of all of that in our lives. And it also does not have to be anything big. It does not mean that like my entire mood throughout the day is this like wonderful, happy, cheery, like birds singing thing. It can just be like, there can be bright spots in your day that are like, okay, it's stabilized me. I'm okay. If that makes any sense.
Absolutely. You call them your pockets of happiness, right? I love
I do.
Things,
it's
right?
little things that fill my pocket of happiness. I started that because I'm like, oh, it's just something I want to like put in my pocket and save for later. So it's things like a sunset. My kids are like playing and not fighting. It's the fact that I actually made dinner tonight. It's like the dance party in the car on the way home from picking up the kids from school. It's a friend sent me a text and it meant something to me. I wore my favorite earrings that day. It can be anything like big or small, but people often think that like something really big has to happen in order to have joy. And it doesn't. It starts so small.
I love that. And I think too, like that concept that you're describing is that joy is the concept of duality. Duality meaning that we can hold two opposing things at the same time. We can be going through a really hard time driving home in the car with our kids and have a dance party and feel excitement about that. We can, we can hold those things. We have our divine DNA from our spirit that came from our heavenly parents allows us to hold that capacity. The natural man in us doesn't allow us to hold that and would say one or the other must be true and it must be the negative one, right? And we can't absorb that joyful moment in that experience of something that's difficult, right? That it's being able to see that, have it pour into you, have it be something that sustains you, right? That's in your pocket and you get to pull out later and helps you later, right? And that's joy, is that duality concept, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody can feel joy today. Start right now. Like you can feel it. Even if you are in like the worst of times, you can feel some semblance of joy.
Yes. I love that. How do you feel like you developed that ability to do that? Do you know, like, has that been a part of you to be able to have that type of perspective? Or do you feel like it's something you had to really work at?
I think both. I do think it's a spiritual gift that's been given. When we learned about spiritual gifts a couple of weeks ago, I do think that is one of mine. I think it started for me during my postpartum because that was the first time. I've always just been a happy kid. During my postpartum was the first time in my life that I was like, I am miserable and I don't see how this is going to get any better. Like I just did not see a light at the end of the tunnel. And so it started with little things like I would buy flowers for my table and be like, those are nice, So things that like filled my pocket of happiness was like one thing a day. That was it. And I had to like search for it, and then as time went on, I was like, oh, I'm able to find 2 things and then 3. And then I was able to find more. And you asked me today and I could probably tell you like 75 because I'm so used to it. But it was something that I really had to work on because as I've gone through, a couple of things that have just been really life-changing, I've really realized the Lord is not like, oh, you've hit your like difficulty quota, like you're done for this decade. You're not going to have any more children, I'm like, no, this is life. This is mortality. Like miserable things will happen to me. And to where I was just like, I don't want to be in a miserable state during all of that. So I feel like over time, I have just really tried to focus on like the good parts of every day so that when those disappointing times come, I'm like, I already have it so ingrained in me that I'm like, okay, I can still find happiness, find that joy during the day.
I love that. And preparing now, right? Like we're all going to experience grief and loss in some way, whether it's the loss of a person, the loss of an idea of something that we thought we would have in our lives. Loss comes in lots of ways for everyone, right? And so being able to prepare yourself now to do these small and simple tasks, right? Or skills throughout the day that really draw you to feeling the Savior's love. Like that's God manifesting his love in our lives, right? Miracles come in very small and simple ways throughout the day. And it's our recognition of them is what makes them a miracle, right?
Absolutely. And I know that it's often asked of me, like, if I seem so happy during this difficult time, like, are you really grieving? Are you really, to where it's a common thing that people are like, you seem too happy to really be grieving what's going on in your life. And that's where I say that it's just not true that you can't feel both feelings at the same time. I do seem like a very happy person and I feel like I am a very joyful person, but that doesn't mean that I don't deeply, deeply feel the disappointments in my life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that we don't have to show those, right? On social media. Like we don't have to show because you're not seeing that part of people. I think we kind of get that idea in our mind sometimes, like that comparison thing, like what I show up and show people is a very minute, small part of my life. And so if you're comparing your life to that part of my life, it's not an accurate representation of what's really happening.
Very true. And often those like dark moments, are very sacred to me because those are the times that I really turn to the Lord and he and I are having a conversation that I'm like, it's just not something that I want other people invited to.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. I love that you said that. It's like sacred time with the Lord that we don't have to let people in on those moments. We don't have to share those. We don't have to, because I think sometimes in order for us to think that they happened, we need to be able to share them with people and we just don't, right? Like we can keep those to ourselves and be what we are. Absolutely. Oh, this is so good. This is so good. So you created this, let's see, it's called the Daily Joy Guide. Do you want to tell people about that? And then we'll link it in the show notes and they can grab it too.
Yeah. So it's just this little free guide. And I think a lot of people, like I said, feel like in order to find daily joy that they have to do like major life changes or they have to do really big things. So these are like 3 different little things that I did that I've done in my life, like over the years. And it's things that fill my pocket of happiness. And like I said, I now could tell you like an endless number in my day today, but if you are really struggling, like just start with 1. Just start with 2 and they could be like next to nothing. The second thing is what did you do to like create joy for yourself today? A lot of people wait for it to happen to them. And I'm like, oh no, let's get this party started. My kids are so used to it. It's like I cook dinner and we throw on music. And before you know it, like a kitchen dance party is happening. Kitchen dance parties are really big in my house, or like we blow up balloons when the kids get home from school and now they're just all over the house, which usually the balloons thing ends up being a point of frustration because I'm like, who blew up all of these balloons? But it's just something like that. We run out when we play in the sprinklers. Like, what have you done? Did you sit down and play the piano today? That is something that brings you a little more joy. whatever it is that speaks to you, just do something big or small. And then the third thing is like actively looking for God in your life. A lot of people wait so much to see the really big things that they look over so many little things where the hand of the Lord is in your life. So I really try to make it a point of like, where has God been in your life today?
Yes. I love that. I love that. I'm a big proponent. I've created the whole prayer journal around that of just looking in the last 24 hours. Like, don't look farther than that. Just look, where in the last 24 hours have you seen God, and getting in that habit of really seeing that, right? And not waiting for God to create joy, but to create joy in your own life and recognizing he can help you do that. That is still God's power showing up in your life.
Yes, absolutely. I love that you just said that.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, so good. This has been so good. Do you have anything else that you want to share with anybody about grief, about the Savior, about kind of anything that's been helpful for you in your journey?
I think that you hit a lot of it. I think I just feel compelled to just validate that this is really, really hard. Grief and whatever it is, like we had said, of a person, of an idea, of a job, of whatever it is that you have lost, that pain and that loss is very, very real, and it can cut very deep. So just allowing yourself to feel that. These are, like we had talked about, these are very mortal feelings, and the Lord is not asking us to not feel these mortal feelings. It's just, where are we going to go when we do feel these? And so just with that being said, like, you can still have such joy in your life, even when that cut is so, so deep.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love that. Thank you so much. I just appreciate you taking your time to share your testimony of the Savior and your story, and being vulnerable and sharing your story in public to people. I think it's helped so many people in doing that. I remember, I don't know if you've talked about it a while, but that Tim was the one that encouraged you to have the account in the first place and do that.
It was I feel like it was so divine. He was like putting things into orbit for me before he even got diagnosed. But yes, because little side thing, I married my first husband a second time, and then we got divorced a second time, just trying to work on our marriage. And I get asked a lot, why did I choose to stay? Why did I try to, when did I know when to get divorced? And then just like, how do you find happiness in co-parenting? So it had started in just talking a little bit about that specifically, but then also just like how to find joy in the unexpected life. And then he was diagnosed, and that's when I got most of my followers, and then even more after he died. So I feel like it's just that it's so divine how things are put into orbit years before things are really supposed to happen. And I just think it's such a special thing that it was Tim that encouraged me to start my account.
Yes.
I love that you remembered that.
I do. Yes. I mean, I think it was I've thought about that a lot, that he was probably prompted long time ago and had no idea that it would be this at this point, right? That it would turn out to here. But, and I have to tell you too, I have recommended your account to so many people, just like that are struggling in not even just grief, like of losing somebody, but just in struggling in like, I have a special needs kid that I wasn't expecting to have a special needs kid, or, and it just encouraging them to find other people that are doing some of the, ways that you wouldn't expect to deal with some of these situations in your life of loss, right? And that a lot of times we think that there just isn't that example out there, but there are really great examples. And so you're a great one that I recommend to people to come over and find.
Thank you so much. That means so much to me.
Yeah. I think people are on social media and they're absorbing negative energy in that way. So I always try to help them find that positive energy, and you're definitely one of them. So
thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your testimony so much.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime. I'm so happy to be here. This was incredible.
Thank you for listening to the LDS Mental Health Podcast. I hope you were able to find ways of healing, guidance, and peace. If you liked this episode, please share it with a friend who would love to start thinking in a higher and holier way as well. Or hit that follow button so you don't miss out on any episodes. Also, check out the links in my show notes for other episodes you might like and links for other mental health resources on my website.